All right, Pastor Tanner. This has been a few weeks. This has been a few weeks in the making here. A few emails back and forth, and I've been watching all the excitement on the socials, on the social media, and so this is great. I'm glad that we are able to just finally connect and talk. It was like I had to force myself beforehand to actually get us to pause and click the go live button because we were already riffing on so many different things at the beginning here. This is cool. It looks like we'll get into an intro in a second, but your Twitch, your YouTube, your Faith Life, or your Facebook community, they're already engaging and dropping a few comments. So before we get going, let me just start with kicking off the Logos Live. My name is Jason Bruckner. I am the senior community manager here at Faith Life in Logos, and we do these episodes here and there. This Logos Live interviews with authors and pastors and folks that are doing incredible things all around the world, actually. And so I get to sit down and just kind of have a fireside chat, if you will, a little conversation with Pastor Tanner about what he's doing on YouTube, on Twitch, on the interwebs. And I think this will be wonderful. So Pastor Tanner, first off, thank you for being here with us. This is great. It's a pleasure. So thank you.
Pleasure's all mine, Jason. I'm really excited about this opportunity, and yeah, I couldn't be more stoked.
Mm-hmm. I had to sneak in a drink of coffee. I saw you. What is that, tea?
That's right. We're drinking tea this morning.
We're drinking tea. So if you are watching live right now, please leave us a comment, not where you're from, but coffee or tea. What do you prefer, and why coffee? Because it's obviously coffee. Coffee's the clear winner. I don't know anybody who I can trust that drinks tea.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
I know.
Yeah, so very exciting. So right now, I'm going to do a brief intro, but then I need you to unpack it for me, Pastor Tanner.
Sure.
So you are known, I think, around the office at Faith Life and Logos as the Twitch pastor. And I know that you are very familiar with the product in our community and our audience. And so you're a Twitch pastor, but you are also a pastor in real life and outside of the internet. Both of them are real life. You're a pastor in the flesh for a congregation. And so I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. And then I don't even know, where are you located? I should know that. Where are you located? So why don't you introduce yourself a bit for our audience?
Yeah, I'd love to. So we're actually located here in the small town of Leadville, Colorado. That's in the middle of the Colorado Rockies. Okay, so if you're down in Denver, you go a couple hours west up in the mountains, and that's where we're at. We get a lot of snow, 300 plus inches of snow each year. So,
Wow.
it's very exciting up here. And yeah, I actually started the whole Pastor Tanner Twitch pastor endeavor with being a live pastor, right? It's something that I became a pastor at my church. And then I thought, okay, this is a good way to, in a sense, shore up what we're doing in, the live living space of the church. And it just kind of exploded and moved from there. So it's been an interesting and wild ride the last, I don't know, 3 to 4 years. But yeah, I continue to pastor my local church, my local congregation. I'm the lead pastor of that church here, First Baptist Church of Leadville. And I also, kind of do what I do online.
That's incredible. I'm a runner. I mean, I have to ask, you do the Leadville, like, what is it, 100-miler?
That's right. It's 100 miles, and I don't do it the Leadville 100. A lot of people do. We get tons of tourist traffic when the Leadville 100 goes off. And then I also have a few members of my congregation who dabble with that sort of thing, endurance sports and things like that. So it's fascinating. In our local church, we get so many visitors, right? We just get people come in and out for so many of the tourist attractions and activities, and it's really exciting. I've had more than one person come up and shake my hand, and they're kind of smiling wider than
Yeah.
normal. And I'm like, hey, welcome to our church. And they're like, "We watch you online. We're so happy to be here."
That's
So pretty cool.
cool. I want
Yep,
to
yep.
dig in. I absolutely want to dig in a little bit to that, like that space, that Twitch space and YouTube
Yeah.
space, more on the digital discipleship side. That's something that's always exciting for me to explore and talk about. But can you tell us what platforms you're on? So I know you from YouTube, so I don't even know what Twitch really is all about. I'd
Yeah.
like to learn more about that with you. So what
Sure.
channels are you on?
Yeah, so our primary platforms are just Twitch and YouTube at this point. I also dabbled with some Facebook Live at some point, but I found it hard to integrate with everything else that we were doing. And so,
Hmm.
my online ministry really took off with Twitch to start with. And essentially mindset on Twitch is, hey, discoverability is not great on Twitch, especially for content that's so unique as mine. I'm one of the very few people doing Christian live streaming content on Twitch, right? Which is a gaming platform. It's meant for live streamers who are playing
Yeah.
video, things like that. So the mindset is, okay, build a platform on another channel, such as YouTube, and then go ahead and divert traffic, right? And so we did that for a while, and then the YouTube started to really take off as well. I was also on TikTok for a brief period there. I actually was pretty large on TikTok, because of a few evangelism videos I had done, through video gaming and things like that. When at our peak, we were at like 90,000 subscribers on TikTok, but
Really?
the traffic was not in-depth Bible study. It's just a different group of people who were coming from there, and we just realized that's not the direction we wanted to go with our online ministry. So kind of dropped off
Okay.
of TikTok and just really just focused on Twitch and YouTube at this point.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that about TikTok at all. So is it still it's out there? It's just hanging out right now. And
Yeah, it's just hanging out, but
okay,
I basically abandoned the platform. I haven't uploaded a video in, months and months. And so, yeah, it's just something
got it.
where we've been experimenting for the last 3 to 4 years, really, with this online discipleship space, like you're talking about, trying to figure out, what works, what doesn't, and, what's actually helpful to people. And so we've just kind of been honing in on the space God would have us move in.
Yeah, that's solid. And I think that's where I want to go as we start our discussion together. And so I did just drop for anybody who's watching live, listening live. I dropped a link into the comments for Pastor Tanner's YouTube channel. So make sure you hop over and subscribe. If you're one of the maybe Logos users checking out our conversation today, and you're not over on the Twitch side or YouTube side with Pastor Tanner's community, so make sure you do check that out. So let's just kind of get into things a little bit. So if we have this term digital discipleship and online ministry, these different things. So talk to us a little bit about what you have learned and share with us a little bit of your story, if you wouldn't mind, Pastor Tanner.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And we've learned buckets and buckets. So I'll try to give the condensed version. But, when I originally started in the online space, like I said, it was coinciding with me just being a real life pastor, right? And my thinking was initially, what we'll do is we'll live stream me working on my sermons. And I called them digital office hours at first. And the idea was, okay, I'm
Hmm.
actually going to be available to my congregation live streaming to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, any platforms we could. And I'm going to be available to them, but I'm also just going to be working on my sermon. So it's not like I'm losing any of my sermon prep time. I'm, redeeming the time. I'm making good use of it. But if, Mrs. Jones wanted to hop in and ask me for a prayer request or ask me for, a resource update or something like that, then I would be available to her. She would know, like, oh, this is Pastor Tanner's digital office hours. I'm just going to pop in on Facebook and say hi to him. Right. And so that
Wow,
was
that's
the idea
cool.
behind it initially. And I would often actually go to the church, set up my laptop, and just use the webcam on the laptop. And I would live stream myself in my church office. Okay. And it was just meant to be accessibility. Well, hardly anyone from my congregation showed up, maybe just a handful of people, but random internet people started showing up just out of nowhere. And the space on which they started showing up en masse was Twitch. It blew my mind, right? Because I was just multi streaming to many platforms, just seeing whatever would stick. I was on Mixer at the time. I mean, Mixer's dead at this point, right? So we were just multi-streaming to everything, and Twitch started to blow up. That was the first one. I would get multiple users come in on Twitch. They would sit with me the entire time. They would give me prayer requests. They would ask lots of questions. And, what are you doing? And I would say, hey, I'm working on my sermon. I would explain my thought process while I worked on my sermon. And we would just get more and more viewers who were interested in that kind of content, actively engaging with me. And then you would get the same viewers start showing up day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And I started to build this online community on Twitch that I never
Mm,
expected to begin with. And so I brought it before the local church and I said, what do we want to do about this? And praise God, I have a congregation who thought, you know what? This is an outreach opportunity. This is discipleship. This is evangelism in the online space. Keep doing it. And so
mhm.
they encouraged me. They pushed me. You're not neglecting any of your duties here at the church on the local level, but man, we want you to continue reaching out in the online space. How can we support you? And so it kind of blossomed from there.
Wow. That's amazing. I have so many questions. Like, well, I'm going to just start with one, and then we'll dig into that discipleship and evangelism that you talked about. Did you see yourself going this route? Like when you started ministry? Like, is this something that has always been exciting to you, something that you wanted to explore? Or is this just like, I just feel like I want to make myself available to my congregation in a new way? And
Yeah.
then, yeah, so let's start there. Like,
Okay.
was this part
It
of
was
the
definitely
plan, the strategy, or was this just, let's just give it a whirl?
No, it was definitely the latter. We just stumbled into it. There was no overarching plan ahead of time. I didn't have some big, master grand scheme. It was just,
Right.
yeah, here's a new unique way to make myself available to my congregation, and we'll see what happens. And we have adapted a lot since then, right? And as it started to grow, I really found I was building real relationships with people online, real people who I'd never met, who I don't even know what they look like because they just have a tag and a handle or something like that, but I saw them time and time again. I've prayed for them many, many times,
Mm.
and I've helped try to answer some of their hard questions about the faith, about Christianity. And so then we decided, wow, here's real ministry being done in the online space. And let's lean into that and see how God blesses it.
Yeah, that's great to be able to connect with people. I'm sure from all over the world, and not just in Colorado. There. So do you see? This is another one. You don't have to answer this. Do you see that they like tune into the church? Are they watching some sermons? Do they become a part of the online community? Like, I think of a lot of churches are going towards like an online campus. Even do you see that like your reach and exposure of your church is growing, or is that a conversation?
Yes, absolutely. There has been a lot of people attending online the sermons. We'll see the
Mm.
same users over and over again. So we started live streaming the sermons online, and I actually got with my tech team, and they actively monitor and answer the chat while I'm up on stage preaching. So I'm up on stage preaching, and you have people who are actively attending from all over the world. And again, people who attend week after week after week after week, they show up and we're actively engaging with them, speaking to them. And then another thing I've done, I implemented a Q&A in my service. It's at the end of the service after we're done preaching. It's an open question and answer for about half an hour. And we've incorporated the chat as part of
That's
that.
cool.
So I'll be answering live questions from the congregation, but oftentimes the individuals on the tech team will raise their hand and say, "Hey, we have a question online from, a random user. Here's their question." And they'll read it out loud to me and I'll answer their question right there
Mm.
online. So it's been awesome just how it's integrated. And I'm telling you, every time we live stream a church service, I'll look out at a full congregation. I'm like, okay, none of my congregation is watching from home, or very few of them. But then I'll get home after the live stream and I'll see, oh, you had 40 viewers, 50 viewers, just people randomly
Yeah.
popping in from our various streams because they know me from our live stream content.
Hmm. I have so many ideas running through my head. Do you think? I guess there's a lot of conversations in the church right now about we're post pandemic, we're post COVID, and we're looking at moving back to in person. But I also see the church's need to be flexible in what they're offering the world in a footprint like this, like a digital footprint like this. And so I think we'll move on to digital and discipleship and evangelism more pointedly. But I think that I just want to point out that we can be creative in how we offer our sermons or our ministry in a digital space. And so I think that this is a great way to do that. And remember that when you stream your service to social media, when you stream your service to Facebook or YouTube, you're pushing your environment, which is an in-person environment, into their social feed. And you're asking people who are so used to seconds of scrolling through something and catching something to sit there and watch an entire sermon. So I think that Pastor Tanner has done a great job here of adapting to the digital environment. Twitch is much longer form than YouTube or Facebook, but adapting to the people who are checking things out online and being able to offer questions and responses like right there in person. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Yeah.
I just think that's solid. So
Well, I really appreciate
go ahead.
that. I do just want to say one thing. I
Hmm.
totally believe this is a both and. A lot of people want to pit the online discipleship or community space against local church. And I think we can do good work in both spaces at once. And so I am not abandoning the local church. I love the local church. We're focused on that. And you can do things in person that you can't do online. But man, an awful lot of discipleship and ministry can be done online. And I think we as the church need to avail ourselves of that opportunity. Like you said, remaining flexible. So yeah, both
Yeah.
and for me.
Yeah, that's solid. So, yeah, I've alluded to digital discipleship and evangelism a couple times. I actually, you corrected me before we went live. I kind of assumed that it was what you're doing on Twitch is much more discipleship. So, from what I understand, and for those of you who aren't familiar with Pastor Tanner's Twitch channel, you go live, you work through Sunday prep. For the most part, you are working through Logos Bible software a lot of times, and you're preparing for the upcoming Sunday. And so, in my mind, you are discipling believers and showing them how to study Scripture. In a lot of cases using Logos, which is I'm a big fan of. Thumbs up there. So, um, tell me more about what you are doing on Twitch and on YouTube, and how your mission has maybe changed, and who you're reaching and how you're reaching them.
Yeah, so that what you described is exactly what we do. We go live. I'm working on my sermon. Again, the initial theme of it was, "Hey, I'm working on my sermon anyway. Might as well turn on a camera, and see what happens." Right? Well, it hasn't really changed that much from that initial conception. That's what I do. If nobody shows up and types anything into the chat, I get my sermon done. Fantastic, right? But when people do show up, I love to actively engage with users, and I don't know how many times somebody's come in, they have an urgent prayer request. Would you please pray for me? We stop and pray right there on stream. And I ask the other people who are watching, why don't you pray along with us? There's power in collective prayer, right? And so we do that together. Somebody will come in and they'll say, hey, Tanner, I'm a new user to Logos Bible software. I don't know how to utilize the software. Can you show me a few tips? And I will right there. It only takes 2 to 3 minutes. And so I open, I say, hey, you're going to want to do this. You're going to want to focus on that. And I just give them a few pointers and they say, oh, that's great. Just this last week, I had somebody pop in and say, Tanner, do you have any resource recommendations on original languages and word level study? And I was like, okay, let me show you the standards in the field when it comes to lexicons. And so I opened a few lexicons and I showed them, this is what I use. This is considered the gold standard. If you can't afford this one, then this one is a really good secondary one, that type of thing. So that happens constantly. And, I just love to riff live and chat with people while I work on my sermon. Maybe it's the ADHD, I don't know, but I'm sitting there working and then I like to glance over to chat and take a little bit of a detour, chase a squirrel over here. Somebody asks a weird theological question. Hey, let's dig in. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, all right, let's get back to the sermon, guys. So that's what happens. And it's just a really fun, dynamic environment.
Yeah. What about the recurring the folks who show up time and again, and the way that you're able to, do you find opportunities basically to work with them through their studies? And have you seen some progress and growth that way? Would you say that you have?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And we actually have an active Discord where people can begin to engage with me when I'm offline. So a lot of people have followed that Discord. Then they come into the channel and they'll send me a message. Hey, Pastor Tanner, I'm doing my studies right now. Do you know of any resources XYZ? And then I'll kind of rack my brain. I might go to my library and look up a few things and then send a few ideas their way. There have been many people who have come into my chat and they're looking for resources on certain themes or topics or ideas. And I've just been able to point them in the right direction because I've thought about those things before. Or sometimes I'm like, I don't really know. And they might have a good recommendation. I actually had this the other week. It's probably 4 weeks ago now. I had somebody pop in off of YouTube and I was doing research on the Battle of Jericho. And somebody said, hey, have you checked out such and such book by such and such author? And I said, no, I haven't. And of course, my attitude towards Logos is build the largest library possible. So I just went to my library and I typed it in. I was like, oh, I own it. Let's check it out. It was the crux resource for me for that week. Without that resource, I could not have preached the sermon the way I did.
Solid.
It was so impactful to my congregation. So we were really doing sermon prep in a dynamic way. There's been times I, in the middle of delivering a sermon, quoted a text chat that somebody typed me that week because I thought it was so prescient, And I was like,
great.
hey, a friend told me this week, blah, 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 right? And it's like, I'm quoting people from my chat. It's pretty cool.
Well, it's not unusual, I think, for pastors to bounce like a polished sermon around prior to the weekend ahead, and so to be able to work through ideas in community like that is pretty incredible. So I want to talk about Logos 10. One last question before we do is, would you suggest pastors make time for something like what you're doing on Twitch, or how would you advise that conversation?
Yeah, it's a really tough question, honestly. I think God has deliberately and purposefully led me down this path because of a variety of things. I have a particular skill set, I have particular interests, and they happen to coalesce into this. And I think God really led me down this path deliberately and purposefully, but it wasn't without thoughtfulness on my part and trying to actively discern where is the Spirit leading and how can we reach out for the sake of the kingdom in this online space. And so that's what kind of led us into this realm or arena. I don't know that every pastor needs to necessarily be doing that, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
consider this just another branch of the body of Christ, if you will. So he has given, some to be evangelists and some to be prophets and some to, have the gift of tongues and all this other stuff. And he's given some to outreach in the online space, right? If you
Hmm.
will. But
Yeah.
I do think that there are probably many pastors and preachers who have this particular skill set or would easily be able to minister to people in this way that aren't considering it because it's so unique. And so I do think some should consider it, but I certainly don't think it's something that, everybody needs to be doing. You need to look
Sure.
exactly like this. It's just another branch of ministry as we try to consider how we can really capture the entirety of the world as God's kingdom for Christ.
Yeah, and I think that's what sometimes you'll see a live stream or a conversation or hear an interview like this, and you feel this burden to be doing something similar. And I just kind of
Yeah.
want to remove that from a pastor if they're feeling that way. Like this is pretty unique and pretty incredible situation. If you feel like this is something that you as a pastor may want to experiment with or pursue, then cool. But don't feel like you have to in a digital age do something like streaming your sermon prep every week. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there. So let's talk about Logos 10. Have you heard of it, Pastor Tanner? Have you
Yeah.
heard of Logos 10? Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
there was some rumblings online. I glanced at a few things.
Okay,
No, yes, we
so
have doubled and tripled down on Logos 10. I love it.
incredible. Good. So you just released a playlist. I know that you just released something new yesterday. I think you said it was around Logos. And so talk to us a little bit about what the Logos users could benefit from in finding your YouTube channel. And then let's talk about some of your favorite features afterwards. So talk to us about the playlist.
Absolutely. So, on our YouTube channel, we were trying a lot of different things for a long time there. Like I told you, my initial ministry started to blossom on Twitch. And so YouTube was kind of almost an afterthought, right? And, I have a variety of interests in that space. Let's throw out some theology videos. Let's throw out some discipleship videos.
Hmm.
Let's throw out some videos answering common questions to the faith. And let's throw out some Logos videos. And, because these are just varieties of Christian interests that I have. And so as the YouTube channel has picked up steam more and more, it's just clear that many of my subscribers, most of my subscribers, really like the Logos content. And I couldn't be more pleased with that because I've been utilizing the software for over a decade. And I have a lot of institutional knowledge that I've just built up from how I utilize the program. So then we started putting out more and more videos in those regards. Now, the playlist you're referring to, these are my buying guides. And I just found that I always looked forward to Logos upgrades whenever we would go. I think I've been on board since Logos 5. And each time we moved to 6, 7, 8, I was so look forward to the launches, not only because of new features, but also because of the base packages. Those represent some of the best value you can get out of Logos Bible software as far as I'm concerned. So I would always be investing in base packages, but I saw a lot of people who really didn't know how to buy base packages, what they were for. There are so many of them. There are many tiers, many traditions. What do I do? And I saw a lot of people just confused about base package purchases. And so I thought, you know what? I study the base packages religiously when they come out, right? Like that is something I'm extremely passionate about because I want to get the best bang for my buck.
I
Well,
feel
why don't
like
I
so
create
many
some
people
videos?
do. So many
Yes,
people do. They
exactly.
just
I know.
browse through. Yeah. So
Yep.
go ahead.
And so I thought, let me go ahead and create a few videos just explaining my thought process behind, what I'm looking at when I see these base packages and kind of what I'm thinking. And so we actually did that with Logos 9. We put out a bunch of buying guides. It was well after the launch because, we were just getting going on stuff. And there was pretty good reception to them. So when Logos 10 came out, we were like, we got to do our buying guides again. And we
Mhm.
created buying guides from starter all the way through collectors, right? And I just talked through some of the highlight resources, some of the things to consider while you're purchasing base packages.
Excellent. Yeah, they're solid. That's one of the first videos that I came across of yours. Another one that I remember a little while back though was on sentence diagramming and like the work that you do to bring ideas to life, like from text to visualizing it. If I remember you saying this, I think, and I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole from Logos 10, but I think you said you even preach sometimes from some of your sentence diagrams, but I could be wrong.
No.
Anyways, the playlist there that you put together, buyer guide, like I would absolutely encourage folks to check that out. We've dropped the YouTube link in the comments a couple of times to Pastor Tanner's channel, so do hop over, check that out, and subscribe, of course. But make sure you check out that playlist. So yeah. Did I miss something, Pastor Tanner? You were thinking?
I was just going to say, you're right. I go into the Canvas tool and I make mind maps, right, out of my sermon points, and I preach off of that every single week. I don't even preach out of outlines anymore. I don't manuscript. I preach out of mind maps that are created in the Canvas tool every single week, and I've been doing that for years.
Now, I feel like some people are hearing this, but I just need to paint that picture. So imagine spreading out a passage and marking it up with crayons and highlighters and underlines and ideas and breaking up the flow, and then walk up in front of people and try to preach from that. So I don't know. I couldn't do it. But that's that's you. I mean, you just do it, and that's what it is. So solid stuff. I would say to check that out. The work that he's done over there. So back to L10, what are your, let's say, the top 3 favorite features in L10? I know that you published a video that has more than that, but what are your top 3, Pastor Tanner?
So my number one, exactly.
Yeah.
My number one is the advanced search helps. The search function for Logos users with a large library. The reason you build a large library is because you can leverage it with the search function, right? But the syntax is extremely complicated at times. And that's actually a feature, not a bug, because the complicated syntax allows you to search your library in a much more particular way than you can ever do with, say, a Google search, right? And you're accessing top of the line, top tier resources. And so the search function is one of the most powerful components of Logos Bible software and has been since time immemorial, right? And I just loved that in L10, they said, look, we need to make search more accessible than ever. The standard user just doesn't know how to leverage it in terms of its power. And if you walk through all of the advanced search options there, the built-in syntax functions, etc., that's so helpful. There are many times that I'm going to go to search, I just scroll down, and it's like, oh, that's roughly the syntax I'm looking for. I click it, it brings it up, and then I just change some of the words or things like that in there, and boom, I'm up and running. So I just love that they made this search more accessible than ever. I think that's really, really important because most of the power of Logos is found in its search as far as I'm concerned.
So search is number 1.
Yeah, that's my number 1.
Or is that it?
That's my number 1. What's that?
That's it. Is that it? That's it.
No, I've got 2 more. So my next one, it's got to be the print library function. I know this is kind of the keystone feature for a lot. It's included at that gold level, and it's such a powerful feature. I have a book right here. You know, this is a book I own in print, and Logos has it digitized, right? And it actually fooled me. I'm not kidding. It actually fooled me at one point. I went through and I started, including in the add to print library function. I included this one and several others. And I didn't realize how deep the integration would be. And so I actually went into my library and I started searching, and I pulled up the book itself. It wasn't just in search. It was actually in my library. And I pulled it up, and I actually, live on camera, I was like, when did I get this in Logos? And I started telling, I was like, man, I have it in print, and I added it to my print library, but I didn't realize I picked it up in Logos at some point. I figured I picked it up in a collection that was on sale or something. And then I went and pulled it up, and it's like, you do not own this resource. And I was like, wow, the integration is that deep. So I just think that's such a powerful function and tool. And even for somebody who has the vast majority of his theological library in Logos, it is really helpful. But it's exponentially helpful to somebody who has such a mixed library. And I just think, I mean, what an awesome move from Faith Life that you guys chose to take people's print library, and rather than trying to incentivize them, hey, you got to buy it in Logos, you just said, no, we're going to make your entire library accessible to you. What a great move. And it's just, I think, so helpful for so many Logos users. So that's got to be my number 2. Really, really powerful feature.
Solid. So you were excited about it, but you didn't sum up all that it does. So you scan or insert the print resource into your library. And when you're doing search, it actually pulls up the key features that it actually pulls up these resources from search. Right. And as you're going through your library and doing your research, it'll say, page number blank. And so you go, oh, okay, so I know I've got that book on my shelf right here. I'm going to reach over, and it's going to tell me right where to go, and that's where it is. So yeah, I'm a big fan. It's amazing. And so you can kind of inventory your print resources that way, but you can also actually utilize them for search. So.
Oh, absolutely. And here's the thing. What I was doing before is I had a list of resources in a notes document in Logos
Hmm.
that said, remember to consult these print resources, because I got to the point where I was just always in Logos and I'd forget about my print resources. I wouldn't consult them. Well, now that they're built right into the standard regular ways in which I use the software itself,
Yeah.
now it bring it up and yeah, you're right. Hey, turn to page 211. Oh, okay, let me grab it. It's right there. Boom, 211, good to go. Right? It's huge.
Right. Solid. What about number
All
three
right.
for us?
My number 3, it's gotta be the read aloud function in mobile. Since that went live, I have read 2 books in mobile utilizing the read
Mhm.
aloud function. I am actually a pretty heavy Audible user, right? I try to get books on Audible and listen to them on commutes and things like that, maybe when I'm exercising or something. And now all of my digital resources in Logos are now audiobooks, right? Now, the voice is a tad robotic, so if that bothers you, you may not like it quite as much, but that hasn't bothered me at all. And I'm sorry, sometimes it's hard for me to sit down and read through, Voss's biblical theology. That's, a 300, 400 page monster, right? And now I can actively engage with it in
Yeah.
an audio format while I'm doing other things. That's so huge for me. And I have utilized it multiple times since the launch of it. So I really, really like that
Absolutely.
function.
Yeah. I think I think it's 1,000 pages in a book that we're going through as a reading group. And it's Beale's A New Testament Use of a New Testament Biblical Theology, I think it is,
Yep.
and is the title. And I could be wrong, but I was like, read aloud for sure for that one. I'm not going to
Exactly.
lie.
No,
Yeah.
it's huge.
So, but that's book number 2. Like you just said, since the drop of L10, that's book number 2 for me. So that's great.
Yep.
Cool. Any other standout pieces from L10 that you want to make sure you mention?
I mean, I love all the features, but those are definitely my top 3. The integrated fact book is huge. I said this in L9 that they need to double down on fact book because
Mhm.
it's a way of integrating. You used to have, the topical the topical guide and other guides that all, had that same function, and fact book kind of brought them all under one umbrella. Those other functions are still available if you want them for sure. But I just love how fact book is integrated now. And it's my one-stop shop for many things. And
Mhm.
so, I could go on and on, but yeah, those are some of my favorites.
We'll do another chat soon about
Perfect.
just all of your favorite. And so we'll
That's
have to
right.
book a
All the
week.
features.
We'll book a week and we can we'll just Twitch. We'll just go live for as long as we want, apparently, because
That's
I'm
exactly it.
learning
Yep.
more about Twitch right now. So cool. So I want to talk to you about some new Logos users as we start to wrap things up here. So let's say that you just installed and downloaded or Logos. What would be a first steps that you'd suggest for new Logos users?
Yeah, Logos has done a really good job of making the software more accessible than ever. The first thing I would teach people to utilize is the Go function, or it's that passage or that topical box that's right in the corner on the home screen. If you're overwhelmed by the software and you don't know what's going on, just go up to that box and either type in a passage or type in a topic, and then it's going to populate for you. Hey, is this what you're looking for? Is this what you're looking for? And just click on that, and boom, like so many
Mhm.
aspects of the software are going to be opened up to you, and you don't have to know the ins and outs of the program, right? It's just going to do it for you, right? So that's
Mhm.
the very first thing I would teach anybody to use is how to use that topical passage box, go to box.
Yeah, that the Go box, if you just started with L10, is hidden in the logo now, though.
That's
So,
right.
yeah, so click on the logo at the top left, and that's a good place to start. Same thing. That's the Go box or the command box or the nice place to start. So punch
Yep.
your passage in there. I didn't mean the alliteration. Punch your passage in there. Start with that, and yeah, let search help you out with that. So, anything else you'd
Absolutely.
suggest for brand new Logos users, other than, of course, subscribing to your YouTube channel?
No, no. The other thing I would teach is about prioritizing resources. That's really, really important. And it's
Hmm.
especially important if you have a large library, right? Like if you jumped into Logos with both feet into like platinum or something, you are just going to be overwhelmed with the amount of resources you have. And taking a little bit of time up front to prioritize resources and set those in your preferred layout is going to help a ton for kind of my next 2 recommendations. Because you want those prioritizations, because as you dig into the features of Logos, you're going to be studying your resources in a very directed manner. So that's something that I would highly emphasize to new users is they need to understand how to prioritize resources. And that leads me into my next 2. That's the workflows. I love that Logos introduced the workflows and are continuing to pour into those because I mean, it's a guided study. You can write a sermon utilizing the workflows. You don't have to. I remember when I built my own sermon preparation workflow by looking at indices in the back of preaching books, right? Like that's how I
Mhm.
built it. And now Logos has done it for you. Just open up the workflow, type in your passage, and it's just going to guide you step by step through the study. And since you've prioritized your resources, now it's going to favor those commentaries that you really prefer. So that's a huge one, is the workflows. And then finally, utilizing each of the guides, right? So the passage guide, the topical guide, etc. If you utilize the workflows and the guides along with prioritized resources, you're getting so much value out of the program, and without a lot of upfront cost in terms of trying to research how to use the program. So those would be my fundamentals that I give to somebody who's brand new.
For sure. And yeah, we just dropped links to those 3 features into our Facebook and YouTube stream here. So make sure you check out those links. You can learn more about prioritizing your resources, prioritize your Bibles, your commentaries, your lexicons, dictionaries, etc. So prioritize those resources, workflows, and punch your passage in there. I did it again. And then as you're working through the workflow, you can answer questions that'll prompt you to walk through the workflow, and then guides as well, and customize these pieces in ways that fit your process too. So good suggestions. That's solid, Pastor Tanner. Yeah. So anything as we start to close up here, I want to make sure that I give you time to share where people can find you again, if they're interested in learning more. But is there anything we missed you want to make sure that we cover together,
You know,
including the new one from yesterday? I think that would be
Okay.
helpful
Yeah. I will mention that,
for
if you
sure.
don't know about our content or anything like that, we dropped a Bible study tier list last night. And I went through 35 study Bibles, right, in Logos Bible software. And then I ranked them based upon how helpful I thought they were for my sermon preparation, right? I actually studied 5 separate passages, and I used 35 study Bibles to study those passages. And I kind of ranked them by tiers. So if you have a lot of study Bibles and you don't know which ones to be referencing, or if you want to add some study Bibles to your stable in terms of your resources in Logos, but you don't know which ones to pick up, you might really like that video, and we dropped that one last night. So, we're
Solid.
constantly trying to put out content like this to help people get the most bang for their buck out of their Logos Bible software. What are the best resources? What are my recommendations? I read the comments. People ask, would you make a video like this? Would you make a video like that? And we try to do that. So I appreciate everyone's, love and support. And yeah, I just love the active audience and engagement that we've built on here, and I'm very excited. So no, that's all I have, Jason.
Yeah, and there's of course so much more that we could jump into, and we will. I think we're going to see you again in the future, Pastor Tanner. I would like that
All
very
right,
much if we could keep chatting through stuff. So this
very
is
good.
solid. I hope that if you are new to Pastor Tanner, that this has been an edifying conversation. You know where to find him now. I hope if you're on the other side on Pastor Tanner's audience, that this has also been an encouragement to you in that he's doing just a great work. I would say keep it up for sure. So thank you, Pastor Tanner, for your time. Anybody who's tuned in live, anyone who's listening or watching later on. So this has been a lot of fun, and I hope really just that the folks tuning in stay close to the Word, and that this is an edifying time for all. So thank you so much for
Man.
your time, and we'll go ahead and close out for today.